Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be comparing the 6.2 liter gas V8 to the 7.3 liter gas V8. Both are going to be Ford trucks, and I am curious if this new 7.3 is going to return better MPG while towing some serious weight. Now if you follow the channel, then you know that we have been battling getting our hitch balanced, our tongue weights and everything all set up just right. This pin weight right now is at 1,500 pounds or 1,400 pounds, just right there, and that is because I have readjusted our load. Taking a look here, I moved a lot of what was in the nose over to the rear, right over the axles, bringing our pin weight down to a very good level. 1,500 is perfect for this weight. And now this trailer probably weighs about 5,000 pounds, and we have quite a bit of weight in there. We got about a yard of dirt plus a bunch of rolls of sod, so you could just say 2.5 to 3 yards of topsoil. I mean, sod kind of weighs about the same, but if you look in here, yeah, easily 3 yards. So this load here, even though it doesn't, it's not filled all the way up to the rim, this is probably like 8,000 pounds, guys. It's dirt, it's heavy. So we're gonna go ahead and test the MPG, talk about the driving characteristics of the 6.2 versus the 7.3. We're gonna be starting with the 7.3, but first let's go ahead and hit the fuel station and fill it up with fuel so we can compare our fuel calculation in the truck to the actual fuel used. See you guys at the fuel station. All right, guys, filling up the 350 here for the first time ever. And JB got the price of fuel down to about $4 a gallon right now, basically 4.09. I've seen fuel well under $4 a gallon. It's just those fuel stations are too tight for me to get this big trailer into it. But still, JB, that's too high. And I'm talking about Joe Biden, not JB Reviews. Man, I was watching JB Reviews, and people were really upset when he did his things he don't like about Ford video. I didn't think it was that bad, but now that I got this new 350, I'm thinking maybe I'll do a fresh video, things I don't like about Ford, and we'll see if I can ruffle some feathers. But anyway, let's go ahead and fill it up. We'll touch base after she is full. All right, and we are filled up $108 later, actually quite a bit cheaper than filling the 450. Let's go ahead and get inside the truck. See you guys once we're in the truck. All right, inside the truck, let's reset the DTE calculation here, and we could also record our miles. We're at 281 miles. Let's go ahead and drive and see how this truck does. All right, guys, so we are on the road. We are within our first mile, and we're getting 8 to the gallon with our load. Now let's talk about how heavy this is, because we are kind of guessing. Now, from my experience, I think, really thinking about this, not having a scale or anything, we're probably hauling just over 2 tons. Just from my experience, we're probably just over 2 tons. Now, do I really have I don't have time to scale it and weigh it and all that. And if we had just topsoil, it was dry, we can kind of really estimate about 2,200 pounds a ton. But we have to kind of roll with that. I mean, I do have limited amount of time and funds and all that stuff to make these videos, so we can guess. This is probably not 8,000 pounds in there right now. It's probably about 4, maybe 5, and the trailer probably weighs about 4,600, I think. So we're probably around 8,000 to 8,500 pounds total, and that's kind of what we have to roll with. Now, how's this truck doing? Pretty dang good. We're at 9.4 to the gallon. Pretty good. It's very chill compared to the 6.2. It's less dramatic, less howling, no fan clutch. I think that 6.2 needs a new fan clutch. It's not totally bad to where it's just screaming. It could be worse. I think it's just starting to go. I was watching Bill Hewitt on that show, powerstrokehelp.com, and he was saying that they basically always fail, and they're almost like wear items, to where after, you know, so many hours of operation, you have to replace your fan clutch. So, you know, the miles on the truck, low, 23,000 miles, but what are the hours of operation? That truck has had multiple oil changes. We change the oil like every 3,000-4,000 miles, maybe sooner. I mean, we might even change the oil like every 2,500 miles, because the way that we use the truck, we can't go off of a 5,000 mile interval or 10,000 mile interval. There's just no way. We'd only have a few oil changes. We really put hours on our truck, not miles. So when we do our oil, what do? I just use the oil life monitor. And for me, from my experience, my oil life monitor has kept me changing my oil much sooner than 5,000 miles because of how I use the truck. And that's how it's been on all my trucks. On my 450, we got 20K. That 20K, that's a much more than 4 oil changes. And we sometimes we change the oil 1,200 miles if it's a busy winter. So, you know, that's kind of how that goes. But this truck's doing good. The main thing is, like, how does it do compared to that 250? Suspension wise, I have to kind of tell the truth. This 350 D-rate thing wasn't really worth it. You think about it. For the payload to be where it's at 2,800 pounds, I think it's like 2,863. I don't think that's, you know, good payload compared to the 250. The 250 has 3,300, and it's probably because the fact that, you know, going into 2022 from 2019, everything got heavier. We got a heavier engine from the standpoint of having 2 alternators and a little bit more equipment on the motor. I think a 7.3 should be lighter than the 6.2, just from the fact that it's a significantly more compact engine. But I think just the more alternators, maybe there's more components bolted to the motor. There's a different oil pan. I don't know, but I bet that engine's a bit heavier. Probably not by much, but probably a little bit heavier. But the overall truck, this 7.3 F350 is heavier than the outgoing 2019 F250, where I say outgoing. You know, I don't know if I'm going to sell that truck or if I'm going to sell the 450. The opportunity right now to sell that 450, it's hot. That 450 is hot. I love the truck. But as I sit in here right now, this new 7.3 is great. You know, I got no problems with it. The one thing I wish, if I were going to keep this and make this replace the 450, is if I would have not derated the payload. That would have been perfect. It's not a big deal for me to have one truck that the employees don't really drive and whatever, and I'm not hiring for CDL. Because having that payload, I would have did a long bed. I still would have did a 430 gear, but I would have did a long bed, and I would have done a payload package. That way I can have everything I want. Lose a little bit of maneuverability, but, you know, kind of is what it is. A long bed with some 35s will look really, really good. Now, looking at this MPG, getting 10.8, pretty good. We'll see if we get to 11, but yeah. Now the diesel doing this, same load, 15, 16, easy, all day. You know, it's very efficient, but I love that 450. But the vehicle report, you know, I've ran it, and people will say, hey, what's the VIN? I need the VIN. The vehicle report from that accident, it's not that bad. You look at the pictures, it's not that bad. Even when people heard how much it was costing and the insurance, people were like, there's no way, how's it so much? Well, that little bump, I mean, it looks like, you know, a little fender bender. The fender, the bumper, the headlight, not the case. We got a slow moving car here with its blinker on. Must be super old. And it's a real tiny car. Why would you want to drive that? Why would you drive that thing? See that up there? What the heck? What you thinking? Like, I don't know. But the 450, when you look at it, the way the engine was shifted and the drivetrain was shifted, the frames touching the engine in a couple different spots where the motor kind of touches the power steering control module, and then the frame kind of touches the engine block, and it's kind of like it's a risk. Will I have problems down the road with the truck? For the Carfax to say a minor accident, because no, the airbags didn't deploy. So as far as everyone's concerned, it is a minor accident, even though the bill was huge. The truck was almost totaled. Any more they total anything more, another component on that truck gets damaged, it's totaled. The opportunity for me to sell that truck and have its value not really be diminished is, it sets me up, guys. It really sets me up. Now, for my business, a lot of people have said, what's best for your business. The truth of the matter is, I've had to move that truck out of the way and get into the work truck and drive it, because I don't have really a truck leader. So technically speaking, I could drive the work truck. I don't even need a truck. I could sell them both. It's nice to have a truck, but if I were to sell both, I wouldn't be able to take on as much snow as I would like. But at the same time, and then too, you get into a little accident, you're out of business. But at the same time, I'm going to be doing that with this a lot of the time. I'm going to be moving this out of the way and getting into the work truck. And it's just going to be something nice that I use for a daily driver. It's going to have maybe 35s on it, put some Duratrax. I need to do something with the rear spring pack if I do decide to make this my daily and make this my my landscape work truck when I'm doing my landscape work. The 450 was really quite good for that, and I will miss the capability that I got out of that truck. It was really a good situation, and I feel that right now I feel like this truck is nowhere near as capable as far as the frame is concerned, as far as the suspension and all that. It's not really nowhere near as capable as the 450. Now, does that mean the 450 is gone? Not really. I'm gonna really weigh out my options, but I stand to get a good chunk of money. The thing is too, I want to bring my business to be more of a construction business, and it's hard to do. It's expensive. I've been putting myself through schooling. That's been real expensive. The CDL schooling was painfully expensive. It was like $8,000 when all was said and done. The building license was incredibly expensive. That was I shouldn't say incredibly expensive. It was like $1,000, and then keep retaking the test and failing the test. The test is hard. It's like I could come back in 2023 with another 450 and do better and be in a better situation. I think right now in my brain, I want the 450, but if I hold out now, then maybe I can come back better. Maybe the economy will get a little better too, and interest rates and all that. But it's something to think about. Right now we are at 7.5 miles in. We're getting 10.5 to the gallon. Comment below and tell me what you guys think about this. But we are going to continue this drive. I'm going to pause the video and I'll pick up when we get back to the fuel station. Okay, we drove 20.3 miles. We averaged 10.2 miles to the gallon, and the trip took us 40 minutes. Let's go ahead and fill up the truck. All right, filling up with fuel. Let's see how much we used. 1.7 gallons. All right, so 20.3 miles driven. According to our calculation by hand, we got 11.8 miles to the gallon, but according to this, we got 10.1 miles to the gallon. Now, we did use a different pump. I couldn't get to the same pump that I got last time, but who knows? Who knows why it's a little bit off? But anyway, let's go ahead and get to 250. get everything hooked up. See you guys once the 250 is hooked up. Now we're going to be testing our 6.2 liter gas V8. Let's see how this truck does. Take a look at the side view here. How does the squat look compared to the 350? But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and warp forward to the fuel station, top this truck off, and do the same exact drive. See you at the fuel station. Getting fuel in the F250 right now. So far, 25 bucks. See you once it's full. Now full of gas, $50 later. Let's hit the road. Resetting the distance to empty right now. All gonna be reset. And let's get going. All right, and driving in the 6.2, we're about 1.2 miles in. We're getting 7.3 miles to the gallon. Now, as far as towing is concerned, they feel very similar as far as the suspension is concerned. Maybe the 350 is just a hair better, maybe, but it's hard to tell. The actual driving, the engine, the difference, the 10 speed with that 7.3 has more gears left over at this speed. You're not in 10th gear, where it's with the 6 speed, you are in 6th gear. You have no more gears. It's all engine at this point. The RPMs are still low. I mean, we're at like what, 1300 RPM in 6th gear. Now that is what a 430 gear will get you when you only have 6 gears. But when you have 10 gears, you really don't need that 430 gear ratio. You could get the 3.55 or the 3.73 and have better overall final drive for the highway compared to what you get with the 430 with the 10 speed. I don't think you really need the 10 speed with the 430 gear, or I'm saying that right. I don't think the 430 gear, I don't think is needed with the 10 speed. Now, that being said, if you do plan on doing larger tires or anything like that, the 430 gearing will help you there, no doubt, with the larger tires. Because once you increase the overall rotating diameter on the tires, you inadvertently slow down the RPMs, and without enough gears, your 10th gear could be a little too low a lot of times. So if you're going to do bigger wheels, then I think a 430 gear is worth it. Or if you are plowing snow, from my experience, every truck that I've had with a 430 gear ratio was better for plowing, just being in 4-wheel drive and sometimes hitting some semi-dry pavement. It kind of overcomes that a little better with the 430 gear. We kind of abuse our trucks. But anyway, we are at 10.1 miles to the gallon, and we are 2.8 miles in. I'm going to continue to drive and think about this, and I'll touch base with you once we get a little further in the drive. See you in a few. All right, so driving along, according to the distance to empty calculator, the MPG is around 11 miles per gallon right now. And I don't know, guys. This is a tough one. Which one actually tows better? I mean, it's hard to really say, but dare I say the 6.2 is a little better. It feels lighter. I've towed these loads before with the 6.2, and I've towed more than this for sure. It feels lighter with this truck than it did with the 7.3. Suspension, they feel the same. Maybe a little better with the 7.3 as far as suspension, but with the 6-speed, you have less choices for the engine. It seems like when it does downshift, it inadvertently grabs the lower gear and it pulls ahead. It doesn't have all those different gears to grab. So when it goes from 6 to 5, it's a bigger jump, maybe, and it kind of pulls a little harder compared to the 10 speed. Say you go from 9 to 8 or whatever, 7 to 6, smaller jump, not as much as a gear reduction. I don't know, but this truck doesn't feel worse in any way. to the 7.3, and it kind of goes to like, I don't know, just from my experience, I'm finding that this is very same-ish to the 7.3. Now, in a perfect world, I'd say the 7.3 is so much better and is blowing the 6.2 out of the world. And no, I mean, it's kind of the same. I don't know. Maybe it definitely revs up more. I mean, we're in the 3,000 RPM. That's kind of where the 6.2 lives, though. 3,500. Yeah, it revs more. But with that rev in the gear selection and the 430 gearing in the rear, and it's revving a little more, but that's kind of where, dare I say, for towing, this is more of a better homeostasis of gearing and everything for towing. Now for just daily driving empty, the 10-speed and the 7.3 all day. But towing wise, I mean, they're very close. You would think like the 7.3 is going to be leaps and bounds ahead of the 6.2. With the 7.3 and the 10-speed would be leaps and bounds ahead of the 6.2. No. I mean, the 6.2 with the 6-speed is still great. I wouldn't, like, if you can get a 6.2 with a 6-speed, I wouldn't hesitate. I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. I'm really impressed. This is why I'm doing these back to back. It really shows me, like, I probably wouldn't notice. Let's say hypothetically I traded this in and just jumped in the 7.3 10-speed. I wouldn't know. I mean, it'd be hard to tell unless you do them literally back to back. And yeah, I mean, this is just as good, if not better, than that setup. I mean, it feels light. It feels like, to me, it feels lighter. Going in this truck, feels peppier, and it feels lighter. So very interesting. I am very surprised. And I would have thought that the 7.3, now the 7.3 is not bad, but it revs a little slower. 7.3. The fan clutch on that thing is new, and you don't hear the fan howling, but on this engine you hear the fan and it still feels peppier. I don't know if the fan clutch, I don't know if it's always been like this or if the fan clutch is starting to get a little sticky, but when the engine brake kicks on, you really hear it roaring. So maybe that fan clutch is a little sticky, because when the engine braking is on, you're just using engine momentum, and that fan clutch, you really can, hear the fan, which is interesting. What if for engine braking, the ECU just like kicked on the fan clutch, just so? What if that could be programmed in, like it just grabs the fan too, so it slows you down quicker? I don't know how noticeable that would be, but yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with the MPG, but so far even the MPG seems to be the same. So this is very interesting. So I'm going to continue this drive. I pretty much just talked for 5 minutes, so I guess we'll touch base at the fuel station. All right, and back at the pump, we drove 19.8 miles for an average of 9.8 miles to the gallon. And it's a little bit different from the 350 because we have different tires on this truck, which means that without recalibrating the computer, we literally went from like 32s to 33s, so that inch makes a little bit of difference, and we saw that with our measurement. But let's go ahead and fill up this truck and see how much fuel we burned. And numbers don't lie, we burned 2.23 gallons of fuel versus with the 7.3 we burned 1.7 gallons of fuel. So just on that little trip, we did use a little bit of fuel. The truck, to me, this one felt a little bit peppier, but the engine's revving a little more and all that, so maybe that's why. But apples to apples, the new 7.3 does, from this test at least, seem to be more efficient than the 6.2. Now, 7.3 kind of rolls a little slower. The engine doesn't really, it's not all, and it could be just that little bit of more fuel, though, to say the 7.3 is necessarily better on fuel. I mean, look at the tire difference and the age of the vehicle. We got 23,000 on this 6.2, and we got these aftermarket tires, Duratrax. Those probably made the difference. I mean, they're a little bigger, they're very aggressive, They're knobby. You can hear them. You can hear them while you're driving. So, is the 7.3 better? There's a lot of things to consider. We do have different tires on this truck. It's an older vehicle. This truck's like, what, 3 or 4 years old. The truck's got to be 4. Yeah, the truck's 4 because I got it when I had my kid. And he's about 4. So this truck's like 4 years old. That's 4-year-old oil in the rear diff, which is probably time for me to change it. And yeah, so 4-year-old spark plugs. So it's close. I mean, the 7.3 and the 6.2 are very close. Like, really close. It's hard to say. I mean, in our testing, that 7.3 did a little better on fuel than this 6.2. But we have different tires on this truck, so it's a tough one. I think from this analysis, if you have a 6.2, I wouldn't recommend running out and getting a 7.3 like it's going to change the world. It's not. I mean, if you need a new truck, maybe the 7.3 is the way to go. It does drive better in some ways than the 6.2. Like unloaded, most definitely better. Loaded, it's tough. I mean, they seem kind of the same. The 6.2 felt just a hair more peppy when loaded. Maybe I'm just more used to this setup. I don't know, but definitely didn't seem that much different. It's not like the 7.3 is blowing us out of the water or anything like that. Now, here's the deal. Driving the 7.3 empty, your daily driver, it drives better than the 6.2. The 10-speed and the 7.3 does drive better empty. Now, once you're towing, I don't know, this 6-speed combination with the combination of the 430 gear, this is perfect. I mean, this is really good. This is a really good setup. But I did forget to calculate the miles. I don't know if it really matters. We burned 2.2. And it was like, we don't know the miles because the miles are a little bit off. And that little inch of travel kind of meant like a half a mile or to a mile off over the course of 20 miles. So kind of interesting. But anyway, this is DS Trucks. My name is Sean. See you guys in the next video. Comment below. Over and out.